What is going on, everybody? Bobby Fi here. Sheets is going to be out today, so we're going to talk through some NBA, some MLB, and yeah, they get just a reminder: the MLB slate starts in an hour and 5 minutes. It's at 6:35 Eastern time today. We do not have the typical 7 p.m. Sometimes I know people have gotten in trouble with that, so I always like to start off by reminding that. And I did a little customizing. I did a little playing around with what I'm going to be doing today. And we're going to start off by talking about draft. Actually, well, yeah, let's start off DraftKings and we'll get over to FanDuel. We still are waiting on Dodgers and Miami lineups because the games start so much later. So we probably won't have we'll get them at some point. I don't know exactly when. All right. So let's jump into it. All right. Look, this is a slate that is really gross pitching wise, and there's a lot of stacks available that I think make a lot of sense. I think that I really wanted to sort of, put a little bit of my stamp on it, but also sort of trust the process, trust the sims. We've been hot lately, so we want to keep rolling with it. But this is where I've sort of ended up on DraftKings as of right now. I am highest on May and Flaherty. I actually like. So this is what I mentioned earlier on the show with Sheets of something that I'm going to do today. I'm interested in Blanco, but I also think Detroit stack gets the most overlooked today. And we've seen Blanco have those blow up spots. And as I keep pointing out to everybody, this isn't the Tigers from 3 years ago. This is not the same team that we just decide, okay, whoever's playing the Tigers, we'll just take a picture and beat them down. Tigers are one of the best teams in baseball. That's a fact. They're a better team than Houston is, by the way. Again, I'm not overly excited about playing Nick Martinez. I don't have a whole lot of other options. If there's one thing I might do, let me just go back to this. I may end up getting to even more of the May and Flaherty. I'm pretty sure in my high buy-ins, it's going to be May, Flaherty, Blanco combinations with some Elder. But Nick Martinez, as far as lottery goes, we just don't have a lot of great options. You can see I'm underweight Will Warren. I'm not really that interested in these plays. I think JP Sears, you could make an argument, but the upside might be a little bit limited. That's the only thing that worries me. I think Feltner, you could make a pretty good argument with how good he's looked. I actually think that's the one that I might just make a little change before I run my final stuff here. Hey, good to see you, K9. Thanks for the love. Guys, please click like and subscribe and all that. I also just want to remind everybody, I really feel like what we're offering with our site is truly one of the best things in the industry. We are charging, so basically we're like $1 a day, less than $1 a day, about 50 cents a day more than the SaberSim offering. And we've got all of Sheets' projections, Goldie's projections, all of my content, all of Brandon Cruz for NASCAR, Rody's playbooks for MLB. We just have a lot of other stuff that we're offering that we feel is good. And on top of all that, all of the pay dirt stuff, which I really would encourage everybody to take a look at. They're incredible tools. They're excellent. The Pivot Finder is great. It's been really good for people who've done some of the sports betting. So I think even K9 is one of them, actually. So I really would hope that you guys would check that out. I also did a video with James talking a little bit about those tools last week. James McCool from PayDirt, and we're thrilled to be partnered with them. So we hope you guys are taking advantage of what is a pretty cool deal. Thank you, K9. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you feel the same way. All right, so. Again, I could argue with making these a little bit higher and lowering everybody else because I don't feel great about any of these. But I don't like Dustin May. We know he's got a range of outcomes. I think he's probably the best option. Jack Flaherty, I'm not as afraid of Houston as everybody else. I want to be well overweight those. Other than that, I really don't know what I'm going to end up doing. All right, good question from Trenton. Yeah, so I've started to, especially as it relates to NBA. Pivot finding and for there. Now, it's a little harder on when you just have 2-game slates. So yes, I am trying to do that. And I also have tried to use it a little bit for the MLB, but I'm just in the process of just starting to get it. Remember, it took me about a year to become like a really winning player. I was always a winning player before, but then I started using SaberSim and it just sort of was different than how I've done things. And I've just got that piece figured out. So I'm incorporating the pay dirt stuff more and more every day, but it's awesome on its own. And it's terrific if you could find a way to use it. I would say, honestly, I'm in the early stages of trying to figure all that stuff out exactly perfectly. And as K9 says, yeah, they definitely help. It's a really cool thing. Also, you can run the trial and take a look at some of this stuff because we're rebuilding the whole site, so it doesn't look as pretty as it might, but all the information is there. So I hope you guys do take some time. So anyway, going to rerun things in a little bit, but this is where I'm at. Again, it's going to be heavier. I think by the end, I probably end up with over 50% of May and Flaherty, and probably nobody else above 25% except for Blanco. and probably nobody else above 20% other than that, probably spreading out with maybe a little bit of a boost to Sears and Feltner. I like the idea of Feltner. I actually considered him for a high buy-in just because the Braves have a range of outcomes here, and we've seen the really ugly from them, and we've also seen them explode. I wouldn't be shocked if Feltner had a decent enough game tonight to become viable. So as far as stacks go, and again, my stack exposures are going to be a little different than most people. Especially on 6 games, like once you get 7 games or less, I am not going to marry myself to a 5-man stack thing. Absolutely not going to do it. Now you can see it's still going to end up being not quite the majority. 40% of my lineups have 5-man stacks, but that's a lot that doesn't. This is out of 167 lineups. And I'm okay with this. I'm not loving this 2-2-2 thing with blank spots, but it's almost a small enough slate where I can get away with it. Probably not the ideal situation. Probably want to get more of these 4-mans in, but I am more okay with it. And also on these types of slates, remember, you can also do something where you can try to. I won't do this on giant slates, but slates of 3 to 6 games. I like actually going out of my way and trying to get the best players with the multi-home run upside. Obviously, Judge and Ohtani, when they're on a small slate, are going to stand out. I'm not so worried about the ownership. I just think that I saw it happen so many times last year. The slates that I won on, and so many of these smaller slates had the Judge Ohtani one-offs with a cheaper stack, and it paid off huge a number of times. So I'm going to keep doing stuff like that. But as you can see, my stack exposures are a little different. And as I mentioned, I like Blanco, but Detroit, and now most of these are in the lottery. So that's what I said earlier. In my high buy-ins, I don't think I'm going to end up with a full 5-man Detroit stack, but I do think I will end up with a decent amount of them in the lottery. And it allows me to play a team like Atlanta, who, again, I have mixed feelings about today. And my higher buy-ins are mostly going to be focused on Dodgers, because you guys know I hand build my higher buy-in stuff. Dodgers, A's, Yankees, and Baltimore would be the teams that I will probably be using in my high buy-in stuff. I like them too tonight. I always get worried because Cabrera's actually, I think he's got some talent, but it's a good spot for the for Dodgers and May. And again, May, we've seen him have these blow up games at times, but I still believe in the talent. And when he's on, he's like almost unhittable. So I really do like that the Dodgers with May as a sort of like a baseline. We'll move over to FanDuel and talk a little bit about that before we get into any NBA. Feel free to ask any more questions. I like Trenton's question from before. And again, like I said, I'm still trying to figure some of it out. All right, so here's where I'm at pitching-wise in terms of exposure. You can see I've got more Flaherty. I think I'm actually going to change this and make sure that May and Flaherty are basically the bulk of my entire exposures here. I also don't want to have 0 Blanco because I think he has a ceiling. So I'll see where I run with all this stuff. Sears would be the other one. Let's take a quick look, though, at one of the things I like. The quality start percentage. You can see that May and Flaherty are significantly higher. And in that case, I'm going to usually have like 80% of my lineups allocated to those 2 players. It's just, again, you want the quality start, you want the win, you want the upside. That's the best way to go about it, in my opinion. Now, the stack exposure is a little different here. Pretty much everything's going to always usually be for something for me. I also don't mind 3-3-2s and things like that. This is probably a little bit higher on the 3-2-2s, but again, 6 games where I expect a lot of teams to score a lot of runs. You could usually say that, okay, you want to try and pick the one that's going to score the most. That's what most people do. But I like being a little bit different with these things. I just won a tournament last week with being a little bit different with I believe it was a 3-3-1-1. Very unusual. That was a DraftKings one too. Not my normal thing, but I'm willing to do it on smaller slates, and I think it makes some sense to be a little bit different than the rest, differentiating yourself from the rest of the field. As I mentioned, Detroit, mostly in the lottery. That's the team I'm going to end up with a lot of it in the lottery. Higher buy-ins, Dodgers, A's, some Colorado, New York, and Baltimore. And St. Louis and Cincinnati are good too. There's just too many good stacks today. There's a lot of stacks. I expect a lot of runs to be scored, and that's just sort of the way that I'm treating it. So with that said, I don't think I need to rerun all that much. I'm going to transition over to basketball if no one else has any questions or thoughts about the baseball stat. It's small. It's compact. I did want to remind everybody you've got a perfect window here, about 7:30 Eastern, 7:45 Eastern, let's say. Do your late swap. You take advantage of the tool that SaberSim has. The late swap stuff, and again, that's why you never really know exactly what you're going to get. Let's just say I hit the nuts from the earlier parts of the game. Yeah, then maybe I can play a little bit more of the Atlanta side of things against Colorado because it is a great spot. Maybe I can play more of the Dodgers. again, the ownership also is an important thing. But if you hit on a few of the, let's say you have a Yankees Baltimore stack, yeah, then I'll play May and Flaherty if I can find a way to get to it. You know what I mean? I love the late swap. Use the late swap tool from SaberSim / TrueDFS, and I think you're going to be very happy with it. So it's been terrific for me, and I love it. Love it for NBA as well. So okay. We're going to move over and talk a little. I did win the showdown on Friday, which was cool. I chopped it, but it was nice. A nice 10K. So I, of course, have to play it again as long as they keep running this thing out there. I'm going to keep firing it. All right. So this slate doesn't start till 7:30 Eastern. Really, there is a couple of pieces of news that we're waiting on. Butler we have as probable now. That's good to know. Okay, so if you're Cleveland, I think they want this series over with, but I don't know how to speculate on Garland, because if he actually doesn't play, it becomes a very different type of slate. So again, those are the big pieces that are going to dictate everything. This is where I sort of ended up on exposures after my last build. I'm not loving that I have this much Davion Mitchell. I think it's a little bit too high, this projection, so I'm going to bump it down a tiny bit. Which, as you can see, I bumped down a few things a little bit today. In terms of games, I was talking about this the other day, like before I won it. What is my takes on the game? So again, if Garland plays, I do think that Cleveland finishes this series, but it wouldn't surprise me if Miami had you get the hot Tyler Hero game. I'm probably going to end up with even more of Hero. Everyone's going to have him. It's not going to be anything unusual. He was on my winning 50K lineup last week where he was 3% owned. I don't know why, but he was. So you can see pretty heavy focus, because must win game means you're probably going to get the best from Miami. That's why I'm getting to so much of the Miami right now. Nobody who's really standing out as being way off the board. I like the Ty Jerome idea. Now, of course, if we lose Darius Garland, Ty Jerome will be 95% owned for good reason. But I like getting to him even with Garland, just question whether Garland plays or not. It's really hard to find things to get way off the board with. One thing that has worked out for me a few times is Sam Merrill, especially on DraftKings because of 3-point bonus. And Cleveland has a little bit of room to play with. If he gets hot, it's not like they need to immediately take him off the court. He might actually have upside on his minutes tonight if he can get hot. And you always love having guys like that in my portfolio. Now I sound like Sheets using the port. He loves saying portfolio. But yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. I bumped up one thing just in terms of strategy. Like, I don't like that 44 to 50. And the reason, like, it won't matter because it's not, if you just use the system and just plug and play, yeah, you're fine. Like, it's not going to just give you that. But if you start making changes, it's going to. So you got to be careful with what information you're getting. Another way you could play tonight, which I've done a lot of to differentiate yourself from other SaberSim users, play Goldie's projections or an average instead of the projections, or you can use Sheets. Sheets are up on our site. They usually pop over here, but I don't think they did yet. He is out this afternoon, so maybe that's why. But you can use Goldie's projections to differentiate. And these slight differences in numbers will make a big difference in the long run. Overall, the one thing I didn't like about what I got, I have a feeling the Golden State and Houston game is going to be a little bit more the game you're going to want for DFS. Now, it hasn't been that way. They've actually been playing like a little bit these slugfest. And I'm not getting to as much of that game. But look, it is what it is. I'm trusting the process, trusting the systems. I am probably going to play around a little bit more with some of the player exposures. Like, I'm getting a bunch of the Quentin Post right now. I'm not sure how much I love that. You got a pretty wide range between SaberSim's number and Goldie's number. I think I'm going to go somewhere in between, split the difference and call it 16, see if it still comes up for me at all. But I definitely like the idea of having a little bit of exposure to that later game. It should be competitive. It's a must win for Houston. And I would like to be, I'm getting pretty decent exposure, actually. I guess I'm over the field on everybody. I wanted to make sure I was over the field. And Jalen Green keeps being lower owned than he's projected to be owned. So we'll bump him up a little bit and just play the. I actually think Tari Eason's being a little under projected as well. That's one I don't mind bumping up a little bit. Yeah, maybe 22's, 21's, 22. We'll call it 22 for right now. This is Eric popping in for 2 seconds. Projections will go up in 10 minutes. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. But as I was saying, we just thought he was out. So good on him for making that happen. Talking just going to the other side of it. Like I said, I feel like I'm underweight this, but I'm actually overweight almost all of the individual plays. It just feels that way because so much of the ownership is going towards Miami and Cleveland. If you want a creative play with some speculation, I think it's Khalil Ware. Um, Now you have to have things work out in your favor, exactly right. But like, it's must win for them. But isn't it also kind of time to change things up? You just lost by like 30 at home. Maybe they do that. Khalil Ware, that's my get creative play is Khalil Ware. I think you could throw Duncan Robinson into the mix with that as well. But I think Khalil Ware, and again, it's not that I haven't gotten to a bunch of them yet. When I rerun this in a minute, you're going to see me get to a lot more of them. I think that, like, again, if he doesn't play any minutes, not any, he'll play something. It wouldn't shock me, but like, what do we've got him at for minutes? We've got him at 21. Would it shock anybody if he played 26 and Jovic only played 15? I mean, he was more a part of this during the season. I know it hasn't worked out well lately for them, so they've changed things a little bit. But isn't it kind of time to change it back? So I like that speculative play. I like the Duncan Robinson a little bit as a speculative play. I can't quite get to the Pelly Larson. You know what, though? Keep an eye out for starting lineups because Miami might just say, what the hell are we doing? Let's just let Jaquez play tonight. Like, if I'm them, I'd be thinking of something creative to try and mix things up. They're getting smoked in this series. All right, Sheets, appreciate that. So yeah, Sheets will have his projections up, but he's not going to be able to adjust for the Garland news. Now, Garland's projections are not going to change. It might be changed within like a half a point. I don't think it's going to change that drastically. It'll probably be a little closer to 35 instead of the 33 Goldizit got him at and 33.8 that SaberSim's got him at. So he'll be a little bit more popular. It's not going to be a massive, huge number. Now, again, that's obviously the piece of news that we need to have before we can decide what else to do with this slate. I'm going to jump over to FanDuel, talk a little bit about that. And I haven't even, I think I just ran just the system. I don't think I've built my showdowns and put my accent on it. All right. The guy who I'm going to be using in Showdown quite a bit is going to be Tari Eason on DraftKings. But anyway, on FanDuel, I'm getting to a bunch of him because he's a little cheaper over there. And I still think this projection is a tiny bit low. So I'm going to probably end up with even more of him than that. But I am a little bit more. I think this game is a little bit easier to play on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings, the second game, the Golden State Houston. Now, Cleveland plays fast. If Miami wants to keep with them, they're going to have to score points tonight. So I'm not saying this game is, I do think it'll be lower scoring. I just think that there's some pieces that are kind of interesting. I mentioned the Quentin Post when we were over on DraftKings. I think there's some argument for a little bit of Moody or a little bit of Hield. Hield is getting the projection so low, and with Butler back, it makes sense. But he can play himself into a game, especially after he's this very streaky guy. Remember how he started the season, he couldn't miss from three, and then he just was terrible forever. I think that we could bump this number up just a tiny bit. Nothing crazy. And GP3 is going to be on the court for his 16 to 18 minutes. I'm not especially interested in that specific one as much. And Jimmy Butler is going to have some pretty decent ownership. It's a huge game tonight. And also, these are two teams that I actually really enjoy watching. So I'll definitely be tuning in. And I'm just going to remind everybody that, again, I'm not saying that this Khalil Ware is some sort of a lock. The idea behind it does make sense to me. You're down 3-0. Why wouldn't you pivot back to the things that worked for you? He's a part of your future. At the very least, maybe the matchup actually works out better with him out there. And they haven't tried that. Especially in the double big situation. I know they've been leaning on Jovic. I think there's room for Khalil Ware to have a game tonight. He's going to be my wild card play. I wonder how much of him I'm going to end up with, but I'm going to bet it's probably going to be like 5 times the field. I think I'll be in the 25 to 30% range for him. And then obviously we can't really do much with Cleveland until we figure out what's happening with Garland. So I don't even care too much to speak on it. As you guys know, SaberSim, they don't like him as much today. Goldie really likes the DeAndre Hunter. I think this number is a little low for SaberSim to have him at 17.8. I think it should be a little higher. I don't know if I want to go fully 18, but let's just split the difference. We'll just make it 18.5. We'll sort of hedge ourselves on that one and tweak it a little bit that way. Again, these little changes, you don't think they'll do much, but watch us get some Khalil Ware in this build. I bet you we get like 25% of them. That's my guess. Could be wrong, but that's what I'm guessing right now. Whoever gets the number right, I wish I could offer something. I don't really have that much to give out. All right, let's see what we've got. And I'm going to take a quick look while that's running and see if the Dodgers lineup has come out yet. You guys probably know this before I do because I'm in the middle of trying to do this. Nope, still no Dodgers, still no No Miami lineups, which is totally fine. I hope that they wait forever. I hope they wait till right before the 8 o'clock games start. But really, I want to remind everybody, don't effort, even if you think you're having a bad night, make sure you're using the late swap tool. If you're using SaberSim or TrueDFS/SaberSim or whatever site you're playing on, as long if you have the SaberSim late swap, you got to be using it. All right, so let's see where we. I guess 25% of what we were going to get, because I'm trying to use as a good contrarian play. That feels like a pretty good number. Let's see if we actually get to it. And by the way, like I said, there is a chance that he just tanks every one of your. I'm okay. You have to. This is the way you win NBA in the postseason. Like, you have to do something crazy like that. All right, so let's see where we ended up on him. 28%. How about that? Pretty good. Starting to get used to it. That's where I'm at. I said I guess 25. It was 28. And I like it. I like the contrarian. I like when we can get contrarian with one play that could be a game changer, even though most of the time it's probably not going to work out. You're playing to hit that sweet spot. Any questions or thoughts on the MLB slate? I'm going to rerun things again over there right now, actually, and then I'm going to probably get out of here in like 10 minutes or so I can hand build my my big buy-ins, and hopefully we'll get the Dodger lineup in at some point. But again, I actually don't. For me, I always like if it's later, because I just think every time people have to scramble to make things, I'd rather be up against them doing that than them doing it. Let's just rebuild this. Why did it come up like this? This is DraftKings, right? Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna rebuild, and you can see I put a bunch of little tweaks. The main things I tweaked today, I did make sure I have at least 15% of each Ohtani and Judge specifically. I do think you can look for one-offs on these smaller slates, but the main thing is I did want to make sure I'm getting the A's stack. I'm getting the Dodgers stack. And as I said, I didn't even have to put in a percentage. I think Detroit is a really interesting contrarian stack tonight against Blanco. That's for the lottery, though. Not a high buy-in, small field. It's a small buy-in, large field tournament. That's where I'm using Detroit tonight. All right. By the way, FanDuel's been messing up lately with something. So we'll say, like there was Jacob Stallings last week, for example. FanDuel had him as not starting. SaberSim accurately had him as starting. So I was still getting him, but then I was getting the alert saying that he wasn't playing. The same thing happened with Jace Jung earlier today. Now it's okay, but that's where I was getting earlier. So let's see where we're at on DraftKings. See if we like it before I go hand build my. And when I say hand build my larger ones, it's usually like today, I think it's the 121, the 250, and the 555. I think I'm playing 2 of the 555s. When I get on a streak, I like to keep going and then hopefully keep that streak going. I always say that if you're playing DFS all the time, your goal should not be to win every day. You want to try and take chances, especially if you're not playing max entry number of lineups, which I never do basically. I will in the $5 tournament. I'll play 150 in the lottery there, but I'm gonna play 1 or 2 in the big ones pretty much all the time. Occasionally, for a really big one, maybe I'll play 3 or 4, but still it's going to be well less than everybody else. So any extra thing I can do to be a little bit different for me, I think is valuable. Okay. So let's see what we're getting. I don't really care. Again, the way I play is a little different than Sheets. I'm not worried about the minimum destination ROI, especially as it applies to baseball. Personally, that's just me. This looks fine. Again, I would have thought I would have gotten a little bit more Feltner and Sears. I don't love the Nick Martinez play as much as some do, but look, you got to play somebody. And I think that the more I think, though, I just feels like we're supposed to play Flaherty, Blanco, and May, and almost, I guess Elder is okay, but like almost everybody else just doesn't. I just don't feel that great about it. All right, so we got less of Detroit a little bit here, but we're getting the Atlanta now. I wonder what types of stacks those are for Atlanta. I don't want the 5-man. So yeah, we don't want this. Let me just double check their player ownership real quick before I make that decision. This can't be real. This is why I'm getting them, okay? Because this exposure, this is the ownership, and even Sheets and Goldie both have them as solo owned. I just don't know how it happens. Well, I was going to change it because I thought we'd be seeing double digits all over the place. We've only got Olsen and Verdugo in double digits. I'm very skeptical that that's the way things are by the time the slate starts. But I can adjust. I can late swap. There's plenty of later things. Something feels fishy. I I can't see that. Yeah, Don, absolutely. Play St. Louis. Like, play everybody. Play. This is what my problem is with today. I like St. Louis. I like New York, Baltimore, St. Louis, Cincinnati, the A's, Detroit as a contrarian, Colorado, Atlanta, and the Dodgers. I think are all good stacks. Like on a normal slate, I would be playing one of these. Look at all these 5 projected totals from SaberSim. We don't see that. We have not been seeing that. The weather's getting better. That's part of it. Not in Colorado today, but yeah, and you can see I capped Atlanta because I didn't want to get too much, but man, if that's really so SaberSim, let's try something different. Let's use, because I trust Cheats and Gold. Let's use an average of the ownership. Now there might be a little bit of an issue with some of this stuff, but let's see. Yeah, it's just a terrible pitching slate, which then in turn means it's a great hitting slate. So we're going to use the combination now. That actually it's probably not going to work the best. So Sheets just updated his. We're going to use Sheets' projections for the ownership, and let's go back to the Atlanta and see exactly what we're dealing with. I mean, it's still pretty low. You got the 4 guys at 10% or more. That makes a little more sense to me. It's just weird. All right. So now that we've got that, I actually like this. We're going to use Sheets' ownership, the SaberSim projection. I want to use Sheets' projection actually too. He won't have it for the Dodgers because he said he won't be able to update the other ones. Let's just use Sheets' projections with my little tweaks. Oh wait. Oh, see, he's got you know what? It's got his old projections. We gotta get that out of there. So we're gonna go back to SaberSims. And Goldie, we do have you guys can look at their thing and tell you when Goldie updates. He usually updates right about an hour before lock. Maybe he's not aware that locked. Oh, it looks like I don't know if he's aware that locked today. What time lock is today? All right. So now we're using Sheets' ownership, and let's just see if we don't get a little bit less of Atlanta. I'm just curious to see if it goes that way. Wouldn't surprise me if it does. I actually would be surprised a little bit if it doesn't give me a little less Atlanta, because he does have them like higher owned by. It's not like a massive amount. Still kind of a small amount for this. And I like Feltner as a pitcher, so I'm not like I get it kind of, but it's. Usually you see the team with the largest total who's very affordable. And I know that they bumped up some of the prices, but you've got like Verdugo super cheap. I guess that is the reason they're just expensive. And then we're going to run the sim, and then I'm probably going to get out of here, finish my main builds. But pop in any other questions or thoughts you have along the way. As again, just mentioning, even if you guys done the trials, try again. Tell us what you like. And by the way, we're also very interested in your feedback. Like I would love to hear what you guys think. But like I said, we're rebuilding the site, but all the information is there, and I think it's incredible information that's very unique. And like I said with the pay dirt stuff, it's really helpful for sports betting as well. All right, let's get through this. And look, on a bigger slate, you could argue it's funny. It's a small slate, but every offense looks good. I would usually spread out my min uniques a little bit more, but I'm not doing it tonight. All right, so let's see where we're at here. Let me just take a look around and see where I'm at as far as team. Same exact number of Atlanta. Okay, we'll live with it. I'm a little surprised. I'm a little bit surprised. Okay. Well, as of right now, I'm going to plug these in. Again, I don't usually like to show all of my exact stuff. I'd like to do it for the members. But when we have no sheets on some days, I'm going to do it. So that's just the way it is. All right, let's update that. For those of you guys who don't know, this is a pretty straightforward thing. But some people, including myself, I was like one of the last to come around to the scripting. Remember, I used to play before we had projections for anything. Can I help you with a picture? I have 5 pictures I'm looking at for large field. My help for pitcher is going to be very straightforward. If you're thinking about anyone, it's Dustin May and Flaherty, and I don't have anybody close to them. The next up for me, and again, may not show on my thing right now, but I'll have Blanco in at a higher buy-in, would be Blanco followed by Elder. But I don't want any of that. I would like to. I think again, I'm fine with taking shots in the lottery, but like this is going to be a day where 75 to 85% of my allocated money is going to, maybe higher, is going to be all on May and Flaherty. That's it. I don't think that these are close. I don't think these are comparable numbers. I don't even understand why it is. I actually think these strikeouts are too low for them. Blanco's, again, that's why I'm using some Blanco, because you have the upside. But I think these numbers are actually like a little weak on Flaherty in May. I think they actually have both should be a little bit higher on their median expected strikeouts. Just my take. Where is Feltner on the strikeout projection? Because he's another one that seems to be under every time. Seems to always be a little bit worse than he should be. Let me go back to the Ks. Where is it? Where is it? Did I pass it? No. Here we go. Wow, they really do have Feltner way down there. I guess it's pretty similar for everyone else. That's fair enough. Yeah, and I wouldn't cross off like guys like Cabrera for a large field. Like, just the Dodgers are a mean lineup, but like he's got probably as good a strikeouts. He's probably got the 4th best strikeout stuff on the slate, maybe 5th. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. Click like on the way out of here. Yeah, I hate those ones you mentioned, Don. For what it's worth. All right. Good luck to everybody. I hope you guys crush it, and let's make some money. Let's keep the good vibes going. We've had some NBA wins. We've got some MLB wins recently. Hopefully, you guys, if you're on a member of the site, check out Goldie's playbook tonight. Check out all of my exposures, which I'm going to update once I'm done. And yeah, appreciate you all, and let's